Hi, and welcome to This Week in Evansville. I'm Johnny Kincaid, along with Rob Myers.
Hello, Johnny.
We just keep bumping into each other.
It keeps happening.
And this week, we've been focused on the mayoral race for Evansville. And this week, we're joined by mayoral candidate Cheryl Musgrave.
Howdy.
Hey, good to have you here.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, we're thrilled that you agreed to come in and talk to us for a little bit. Something we're going to do before we get things rolling here, though, is you've got a TV ad out. And we might as well share that right off the bat and how you're presenting yourself to the voters.
Great cities aren't built by accident. It takes leaders who make the right decisions. That's what Cheryl Musgrave delivers. Her record, a well-deserved pay raise for sheriffs, AT&T's $40 million broadband investment, new roads, better parks, and helping tornado victims recover. While some politicians just talk, Cheryl Musgrave rolls up her sleeves and gets to work. Strong, conservative, proven, trusted. Cheryl Musgrave for mayor.
All right, what do you think of it, Rob?
I think it's a great ad. The production value is very good, but it hits on the key points. Cheryl has got a ton of experience and has shown that she can be a leader in the community. It hits all of those points, and you got to give it a grade A all the way through for the production value and the type of points that it hits.
Yeah, I go along with the A. Yeah,
I'll let the team know they worked really hard on it.
Well, you've got a great team backing you too.
Well, thank you.
You've got some good folks that are working with you. Well, let's start off just with kind of the getting to know you stuff, the things that you don't get to share that much of when you're doing the 2-minute stump speech.
Yeah.
So we'll talk a little bit first of all about family. How long have you and Bob been married?
A little while, yeah.
Okay.
We met in college, and we married a week after graduation.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many kids?
We just, the two, Paul and Margaret.
All right. And I hear about Paul from time to time.
Paul is a very accomplished associate professor of American political science at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst.
Wow.
He is up for a tenure this spring and rejects all my questioning attempts to see how that's going. And our daughter Margaret is here in town raising her two children with her husband, who's with the local medical practice. So the two grandchildren are our commitment to Evansville writ large. I mean, we raised our two children here, but the future of Evansville is what our grandchildren will see. And Bob and I want to make that as robust and as full of opportunity as it was for my kids when they were growing up here.
So excuse us for a few minutes here, Rob, because we could just spend the rest of the time sharing pictures of grandkids.
Oh, yeah,
and
for
talking
sure.
about isn't being a grandparent the best?
Well, during the campaign, I'm not getting as much time to see them as I would like. So.
But being a grandparent's tons of fun. All right, so you've always lived in Evansville?
Oh, I was lucky enough to be raised in the military. So my father, my grandfather, his father, so 3 generations right in a row, military, and all the way back to the Revolutionary War. Wow. So I was born in Germany, raised in Italy, Utah, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, and I've traveled extensively since then. So I come to Evansville with a worldwide outlook, but we've been here long enough that it's home. And besides that, when you're in the military, it may interest you to know that when you get moved to your new post, your new station, and whenever anybody asks you where you're from, by the way, that's the big question in the military.
Sure,
it's just
I
like,
bet it
do we
is.
have to go through this again? Where you're from is where you are. So you're stationed at this base, you are from there. So I'm from Evansville. Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah. Now, you were already involved in the political scene here in Evansville by the time that I moved here.
When did you get here?
I got here in '87.
Well, about the same time, yeah.
So you have quite the list of credentials as far as, holding office goes. See, county assessor, right? And from there...
Commissioner.
And then from commissioner, you got recruited by Mitch Daniels.
Yep.
See, and I feel like every time you say the name Mitch Daniels, there should be like this heavenly choir going, whoa, Mitch Daniels.
Yeah, he was quite the leader.
Yeah. I really admired Mitch. So anyway, we've got you then going to work for the state, and then...
It wasn't just going to work for the state. Let's dwell on that for a minute.
Sure.
I was an extremely successful county assessor When I started, we were using an antiquated system of assessing, and there were 8 township assessors in Vanderburgh County, and around the state there were 101 township assessors. Wow. So I led assessing through the transition to market value assessing, which was court-ordered, and was the only one of 2 county assessors who managed to get the 2002 reassessment done on time. Now, that was a key thing. So you have 92 counties in Indiana, 90 county assessors failed to get the job done.
Wow.
So I got it done, but I decided at that point that I wanted to be a county commissioner. I felt that there were more leadership opportunities there. And so I joined Suzanne Crouch on the commission, and Bill Nix, if you'll recall that.
I remember Bill.
So I was happy there until the state had a property tax crisis. Now, we didn't have one in Evansville, and I like to think it's because of all the transparency work that I had done, putting assessments, sale prices, mapping online for free, first in Indiana to do so, one of the first in the country to do so. But in northern Indiana, it was all still a big mystery to, and I mean northern, anywhere north of Evansville.
Right.
Okay. To taxpayers, and they began protesting. They had marches in the streets, they built little shanties, and they ringed the State House. So folks were camping out, and they weren't leaving until this problem was done. Governor Daniels had me down to his office, standing in front of his desk, and he told me I was the only person in the state who could help him solve this problem, that I was the only one who had the skills, the knowledge, and the drive to get this done. And so, when your governor calls, when duty calls, you go. So he asked me to come on a Wednesday or a Thursday, I can't quite remember. And by Monday morning, I was there. I'd left the kids, the cat, the dog, the husband, the house, my job as county commissioner. I left it all, and in only a matter of 3-4 days, was in Indianapolis, and I stayed for 18 months until the job was done. Wow. So when duty calls, you go. So it wasn't just, I got a job with the state.
Right.
I wasn't looking for a job, didn't want to leave home. But when your governor tells you that you're the only one who can solve a crisis, then pack your bags, get moving.
That's exciting stuff, Cheryl. I mean, most people in the area, they've seen your face around for a long time. You've been involved in local politics, and there's a lot of accomplishments you've had, and the list goes on and on. I think you list a lot of those on your website, and I think people can go see that. It's exciting. So I guess let's talk about a few things. What is driving you to become mayor? I mean, you've been doing a great job at county commissioner. You went through a re-election. Clearly, the voters like you. The public likes you. What are we going to accomplish as mayor and leaving that county commissioner spot, which we think you've done a great job, and we're going to miss you in that role when this happens. But what do we want to accomplish as mayor that is a little different than what you're able to do on the county commissioner level?
We talked before the show began about how the local media isn't exactly keeping up with the problems here in Evansville. And one of the things you haven't read anything about is the problem of public safety. Let me just give you a few statistics, because these statistics are core to why Bob and I decided that running would be the right thing. And I want to let you know, we live just off Haney's Corner. And last year, within 1,000 feet of our home, there were 2 murders. The year before, there was 1 murder. The situation is getting worse, not just for me, my family, but for everyone in Evansville. So let me give you those stats. The number of murders has tripled the past 5 years compared to the previous 5 years. We've had triple the number of murders. These murders are related to, some of them are related to organized crime. And so that the number related to organized crime has tracked with the number of murders over the past 5 years. We've had difficulties with shots fired. So, somebody, when you hear something, hey, that sounds like a gunshot, I'm going to call 911. The citizen calls for shots fired have increased 33% in the past 5 years compared to the previous 5 years. So those are just 3 statistics there. And let me just tell you about how many police officers do we have. looking at the organized crime section, that has decreased. The manpower in that section has decreased 24% from 2012 to 2022. I'll give you another one. About the same time frame, we had 129 officers on patrol. These are the gals in the cars that you see on patrol. This year we have 107. We've had a virtual defunding of the police in Evansville and a corresponding increase in crime, and I see it right in my own neighborhood.
So you're seeing that it's a lack of budget in order to hire more police, and that's
well,
where
why don't you go ahead and
problem.
have Mayor Winnicke on and have him explain how this came to be. Okay, so that's for him to answer.
Well, and from I'm so glad that you brought public safety up, because a while back I went in just doing some research to look at crime statistics. And what I found when I Googled crime in Evansville is several websites that list Evansville as being the third most dangerous city in the state of Indiana.
Thank you.
Behind Gary.
Yes.
And you look at that and go, nobody in Evansville has a clue that that's the way people are talking
Yes,
about
we
us
do.
outside of the city.
I've been talking to lots of voters and lots of people on the street, and it's the number one thing that they bring up to me. We need to turn this situation around. So why am I running for Evansville's mayor? To make our city better. And public safety is at the core of that.
And I think it'd be hard to find anybody on the street that would disagree with that. I mean, everybody wants to have the safe city. It draws people, and if you don't have a safe city, it's not going to help draw workers and talent and families into the community. So what do we have to spend to get it? What is it going to cost us to get to the ideal situation for enough police in Evansville to solve the problem?
Well, I'm going to sit down with the FOP, the Fraternal Order of Police, has endorsed me in this race. All 500 strong of their members, and 400 of their auxiliary members, and all of their families. They know that this situation will be turned around with the right kind of training, tools, manpower. And I've shared with them that the county commissioners and I, this past year, within a few months actually, we raised the pay of the sheriff's deputies and the confinement officers at the jail from among the lowest in the state, and they, in 3 years, will be among the highest in the state. That's created a pay disparity between the sheriff's department and the city police. So the city police must catch up to the sheriff's office. Their resignations are from the city police are also at an all-time high, and let me just say this. Let's see, 20% increases in resignations nationwide from police office departments. EPD has had a 37% increase. So they are resigning with or without the sheriff's pay increase. And the age of the officers, the experience age of the officers coming on or being on EPD, right now, 35% of them have less than 5 years experience. So that means that's most likely when you call 911 and somebody comes to your door to answer that call, they've been on the job 5 years or less.
That's amazing. Are we seeing that this is different than the state average of the other cities? We've got Fort Wayne, we've got Gary, we've got Indianapolis, but also from a Midwest standpoint or even from a national standpoint, are we finding that our numbers are better, worse, or how do they fall in line?
Let me just say this. Whether you're talking about these numbers or crime numbers and comparing to Evansville and saying, well, we're about the same, so forget that. Well, I say forget that. Evansville's where I live, and Evansville is going to be the best place to live. It's possible. We've had it in the past. So we're going to do what it takes to get us back to a city that we all think of as safe.
We were really amazed when we saw the endorsement from FOP, not because you were getting the endorsement, but because they gave the endorsement in a primary, which they don't do. Right?
That's correct. This is the first time they've ever given an endorsement in a primary. And also it's the first time in 35 years that the endorsement was unanimous.
That's pretty impressive. And everybody wants, in this area, they want that FOP endorsement. It's a big deal. It means a lot to the voters when they see that happening. If it's the right time, let's talk about the primary. I mean, this is happening. We've got a contested race in the Republican Party. It's exciting. We're hearing a lot of buzz about what that means as far as what it's going to cost the candidates to get through this primary, even before the big race. You're up against Natalie Raisher, who we interviewed previously last week. We had some time with her. Tell us a little bit about what you can about the strategy. I know you don't want to give away your whole playbook, and that's great, but it's a big deal, and it's exciting in this area right now.
Well, I'm intent on talking to the voters and finding out how they feel, what they think needs to be done. And along with crime, they talk about parks and how basically disastrous the park situation is. They don't feel comfortable going there. They don't feel comfortable taking the children there. They don't want pickleball courts there. The list goes on and on. They don't understand why buildings have been left to cave in all winter long. They don't understand why buildings that's slated for demolition are not secure and children are wandering through them with their video cameras. The situation is about as bad as it could possibly be. In fact, I talked to a neighbor earlier this year who just wanted to have the family go to the park in front of their home. They live at, I think it's Bayard Park, and they wanted to have a picnic out there for a Memorial Day. They couldn't do it until they broke out the lawnmowers and cleaned it up.
Oh my goodness.
And then they could have their Memorial Day picnic. So basic maintenance, all the way up to dangerous equipment for children to play on or play around, is the situation that we have in the parks. So I'm talking to voters and asking them what they want to see changed and learning more about how they feel.
And is this a funding problem that we don't have the resources to get our parks where we want them to be? What's the
I'll
root
just
cause?
point out that the last parks director was arrested. I'm not sure if he was hauled off of handcuffs or not. His trial starts in August, and there's been an interim parks director for over, is it 18 months now? It's been a very long time. So the failure of the current administration to properly staff the departments themselves. We also have an interim building commissioner now, having seen 3 commissioners come and go in the past couple of years. So there's much to get started with as I win the election in November.
I saw the letter that was sent to the City County Observer. Copy of your letter to...
Yeah, that was actually sent to all the media.
Oh, okay.
And if you want to get on those lists, all you have to do is ask to be on our distribution list.
Okay, great, yeah. Well, while we're talking about things getting out to the City County Observer, we'll talk about the other, I guess, leak or however you want to refer to it, which was, of course, the now infamous note on the Christmas card. Regarding Carol's feelings toward what kind of job she think you would do. Do you think that it's fair for a sitting mayor who is of your party to put his thumbs on the scale in a primary?
Like I said, I'm busy talking to the voters, learning what they want, formulating the vision in order to cure these problems. I'm busy working with the police officers to understand their needs, gathering my own inventory, and moving forward.
Good stuff. It sounds like a good plan to me. It's going to be a fun primary, no doubt. So do we want to fast forward to past the primary? Do we want to talk about what happens later? Or do we want to stay focused here right on what we've got going on?
Well, I guess from the standpoint of the race goes, once you're past the primary, do you think that Stephanie Terry has any advantage in that she's been unopposed for, the Democrats gave her a clear path for the primary?
Well, I think you might be half a step behind times because there's a libertarian opponent as well.
Right.
So I encourage you to learn about him.
He's going to be coming in and talking to
But
us.
let me just circle back. I listened to your podcast, I guess it was last week, maybe a week ago. I listened to it, and I heard you say, Rob, that you didn't know anything about the AT&T fiber broadband rollout.
That's on my list to ask you today. So
I wanted to educate you about
I'm excited to learn more about this.
It is AT&T's largest project in the country, and it is the lead project for fiber broadband in the country. This project has received national attention, and it came about because of the need for broadband, just for one. I learned about the need, and I began tackling the problem back in 2019, creating broadband-ready ordinance for Evansville, which guaranteed a 10-day turnaround for permits from applicants like AT&T or Spectrum or all the permits that they need. We instituted a 10-day turnaround that is applicable in the city as well. And we gave them 100% tax exemption for new installs. But as part of this, I understood that no one was investing in fiber or broadband for the rural areas, and that it's a national, probably a worldwide crisis that this is not happening. And I began to learn what's it going to take. We applied for some grants, and the state of Indiana kicked our grant to the curb and told us that we didn't even have standing to apply. But under state law.
That's amazing.
Are you kidding me? Only Vanderburgh County and all 92 counties had, and they said, yeah, that's right. And they fixed the statute the following legislative session, but they didn't fix how mad I got about that. And I was determined to solve this problem. And right about that time came COVID and the American Rescue Plan Act funding that was earmarked basically for broadband. They said that we could do that. And so I wrote the first grant, or the first application, RFP, a request for proposal, probably in the country, based upon American Rescue Plan Act funding standards. And I put that out there. I did not have high hopes for success because the federal government, in their infinite wisdom, decided that it had to be fiber broadband that you were requesting. Okay. And this was early on in May when the United States Treasury Department, which is overseeing it, only had preliminary rules. So we put that out there. I didn't expect any success. And by golly, I got 4 responses.
Oh, wow.
3 of them were for actual laying of fiber, 2 for individual subdivisions, and they were asking phenomenal amounts. So if you think that fiber is not valuable, and I know you do, they were asking for like $10 million per subdivision to lay it.
The numbers are much larger than the general public realizes of what it costs to get fiber optics inside neighborhoods, especially when it has to be underground. And if they do have to attach to poles, then there's rules with CenterPoint and cost to CenterPoint to make all this happen. So I follow you completely.
So AT&T's proposal was a total $40 million package, of which they would pay $30 million, and the county, I'm rounding up here, would pay $10 million for we'll call it the entire unincorporated Vanderburgh County, whether they had currently access to broadband or not. So it's from Union Township down by the river all the way up past McCutcheonville and to the county line, every part of unincorporated Vanderburgh County. $40 million. That, my friends, is the deal of the century, maybe the deal of a couple centuries. And it has made Vanderburgh County literally the envy of the nation. The project is in full swing right now and due to be complete in mid-November. And everyone will have it. Now, this means that unincorporated Vanderburgh County residents will have access to the highest possible speeds for internet known to man, and known to man for a long time, because it's speed of light. And they've been testing the product, and they believe it's even more than they told us in the beginning. So game on.
Yeah,
If you want to develop something that's internet-based from, your 16-year-old's gaming desires in the back bedroom to building a world-class factory of some kind, come on, Intel, we could support you here. Bring it on. So Vanderburgh County is poised for the future in a way that other areas are not.
And in your roles in the county, you've had the opportunity to innovate. You've had the chance to be able to see where a system needs to change and make changes. And I know you've done that multiple
I've got a
times.
lot of officials with me, and apparently I'm the one who sees the opportunities and I make them happen.
So if we kind of switch gears to the mayoral end of things, because the office of mayor is a little different from anything else that you've encountered.
No,
so
I'm
far.
an executive of the county, and the mayor is the executive of the city. So it's the same. There are just fewer of them.
Yeah. Are the issues probably are somewhat different?
No, they're just
but-
probably a little bit more, deeper. As commissioner, the sheriff is a separately elected official. As mayor, I will fire the police chief.
Okay. So are you sound like you're probably going to shake things up a little bit.
Don't I always? Isn't that what you've come to expect?
Exactly.
Cheryl, I think that everybody would be a little disappointed if you didn't shake it up. There'd be, what's
Well,
wrong?
I just read you the crime statistics.
Right.
We
Right.
need to have this shaken up.
Well, and the thing of it is that I went back, I looked at the past 40 years of election results in the city of Evansville. And because I made a comment in one of our podcasts previously about, if the mayor had long coattails, we would have more Republicans in the city council. But when I look back at the history, that's never actually been the case. The city has been more Democrat overall. The mayors have been very moderate, and most of them kind of don't rock the boat sort of approach to things. And we've never had a Republican who had enough vision, I'll use that word for it, I guess, to bring more Republicans to the fold, to get people to think in terms of, the right person for this city council seat would be the person with the R beside their name. And we just haven't experienced that up to this point. So do you think that your approach might have a trickle down in future city council races?
Well, I'm a very practical person. And throughout my career, whether they were Republicans or Democrats, and by the way, I just spent 4 years with 2 Democrats and 1 Republican, me, as the chief executives of the county. And that's where I achieved many, many things, including the AT&T project. So I work with people. I don't work with political parties.
Right.
And I work toward practical solutions, whether it's putting information on the internet or laying fiber for the internet, or whether it's the more than 100 million in roads, trails, bridges, well more than 100 million that I have championed, created the financing for, or indeed the property tax crisis solutions that Governor Daniels and I work to implement. So I'm a practical person working with huge teams at sometimes, small teams when you can do it, because, the fewer people you have on a committee, the more likely you're going to get something done. So I've never paid any attention to the political party. I've paid attention to, can this person help me get this goal, get this job done, so that we can improve the lives of folks here in Evansville and Vanderburgh County.
Okay. So I'm assuming that you will have no fear to use the power of the veto.
I figure if you have something coming to your desk that needs a veto, that means you didn't do your job properly. You did not seek consensus to the extent that you needed it. So I would say if you're looking for that kind of drama, you probably need to look at somebody else.
I think it's a great question. Let's face it, we've got some pretty well-known Democrats that are on the city council. There's 9 city council members total, 3 of them at large and the rest in their specific districts. You take someone like Alex Burton, for instance. His vision might be a little different than the mayor's, based on maybe based on party, just maybe based on total vision. How do you bridge that all together? I mean, that sounds like a daunting task as mayor to have that team of 9 city council people share the same vision you have when they may have their own personal views and visions and ideology of what needs to happen in the city of Evansville.
I can't imagine the city council being opposed to making these statistics that I just read to you earlier lower numbers. I can't imagine the city council being opposed to clean and safe parks that offer attractions for Evansville. I cannot imagine that. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine city council being opposed to smoothly paved roads and an environment that creates jobs and opportunity for everyone. So I know that we're going to get along.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to share a quote with you because having been on the advocacy side of things myself and had that encounter of trying to work with county commissioners, city council, mayor, so on.
I think I was there with you.
Yes, you were.
Yeah.
Well, at the mayor at that time.
Remind me, who was it?
Well, it was Jonathan Weinzapfel.
Okay.
Okay. And the city council was having a really hard time coming to a consensus on a smoke-free ordinance. Mm-hmm. They really struggled with it. And I was on the phone with Jonathan Weinzapfel, and I was trying to encourage him to get out in front of the issue. Come out, say something, get out there, because privately he's saying, yeah, I'm all for this. Well, if you're for it privately, let's put that out there. And he said, look, I will sign whatever the city council brings me. And all too often, that's kind of how things wind up working.
As you know, it didn't work that way on the county commission side. I was president of the county commission during that episode, working with Tom Shetler, who was a commissioner at that time. He's now on county council.
And the two of you were terrific advocates.
Yes, we were. And we along with Bill Nix, because by that time, Suzanne Crouch had, I call it, Suzanne Crouch had gone to join the circus.
Yes.
She took a legislative seat and joined the state legislature. So it was us 3, and we took a strong leadership position, passing the anti-smoking in public buildings ordinance, and basically forcing the issue on city council, who then, if I remember correctly, fill me in, I think that they scrambled around and dialed it back.
They did. They removed 1 or 2 provisions out of what the county had done. But yeah, you were in a leadership role there, and the county commission was fabulous to work with as a whole.
I'm so glad you think so.
It was as a body, very because we spent a lot of time talking about what those details were going to be and how it would all work and.
I don't believe that the smoking ordinance would have been in place at that time had it not been for my leadership. And, of course, Tom Shetler's. But Tom wanted me to wait. I don't know if you were aware of that.
I wasn't.
Yeah, he did not want it to be called to the floor that night. He wanted to wait until city council got on board. And I said, they've had long enough. And so I said, I'll put it on the agenda. If you vote against it, you vote against it. It's going to be on the agenda.
I think I had a conversation with Tom that afternoon on the phone. I was out of town, and I said, just do it. Just do it. There's never going to be a better time to do it. Just go in and do it.
Well, and I think if the statistics are correct, and I believe them to be, many lives have been saved or lengthened because of the decision that day, not least of whom were children being forced to be in the same building or room with adults who were smoking, and they had no choice but to be there.
Yeah, and the doomsday scenarios never came through.
No, business is still here.
That's fantastic stuff. If we could switch gears maybe just a little bit, we talked a little bit about endorsements. You had mentioned the FOP endorsement. Are we going to see, Cheryl, are we going to see any surprise endorsements in this primary time frame that we're looking at? You mentioned, working with Suzanne Crouch multiple times. Are we going to see a surprise endorsement of Cheryl Musgrave from the Lieutenant Governor?
No, but I did forget to tell you about one of the endorsements, and that is from SIBA, the Southern Indiana Builders Association.
Oh, great.
They endorsed me this past week, and those are the folks who build the homes that people in our community go and buy. And they have great confidence in me. We have worked well together. We have done a number of ordinances that change the impact of regulations on home building. Let's see if I can think of any good ones. Oh, do you remember a couple years ago when there was this big movement to build tiny homes?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, Indiana law does not allow tiny homes.
I didn't know that.
That's true. If you want that changed, the state legislature up there at that circus, that's where you go to get that changed. But the state does have a building code, and the building code does describe a minimum size of a dwelling. And this minimum size is a little hard to calculate because they don't put a square foot number on it. They just say, if you have this, if you have that, if you have the other. Well, our local ordinances exceeded the state minimum. So what we did at the county level was to dial that back to be the same as the state's minimum. So you are now able to build a smaller home in the unincorporated county than in the city. And let me give you one more example. I don't know why, but until a few years ago, the minimum lot size in unincorporated Vanderburgh County for an area where you don't have sewer, in other words, you're going to have septic on this lot, the minimum size of that lot had to be 5 acres.
Oh, wow.
I led the charge. We cut it in half to 2.5 acres. So, boom, we doubled the amount of land buildable for homes with septic. Those are some examples of the things that I've worked on with SIBA in order to achieve more affordable housing. There's a lot more work to do there.
And we know we've talked about this in previous podcasts, Johnny and I, and off air, if you will. Let's face it, the Vanderburgh County and Evansville, the population isn't increasing at a dramatic rate and hasn't been over the last decade. Am I wrong?
Evansville has held steady.
They've held steady.
Vanderburgh County, outside the city limits, is growing. In fact, this area of town where your studio is and going north is the fastest growing area in southern Indiana, southwestern Indiana.
And we need that. We need more people in the area to sustain the growing manufacturing and growing industries that are coming to the area. You can look at the Area Plan Commission, and there are new businesses every single week that are announcing that they're going to be opening in the area. Even through this economy that's, let's face it, waning just a little bit, in order to have these new businesses keep popping up, we need more people. Have we been to a restaurant in the last year? I mean, come on. We know that they're starving for servers, pardon the pun, and for people in the kitchen. We need more people. We look at Toyota, who 5 years ago had a starting wage of $15 an hour. You see the ads now, it's $20, $22 an hour. They're desperate for more people. In order to do that, we have to attract people to live here.
Well, the one way they could do that is to raise their wages. All right. You talked about servers, people who work in the kitchen. Those are among the lower paid jobs that are out there. So raise the wages, folks. It's not that hard to understand.
All right.
Good stuff.
Well, this has been terrific. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. We will be following through the primaries here, and hopefully be able to have you back on with us again in the future.
Oh, I would love the opportunity.
All right. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Cheryl, and thanks, Johnny, for having me again.
You bet, Rob. And be sure that you hit the subscribe button so you keep getting updates on when new episodes post of This Week in Evansville. Next week, we're going to be talking to The Libertarian candidate. For
We
mayor.
are going to have Michael Doherty. I've been in contact with him. We're going to work out exactly when we have him in, but he'll be on the following Wednesday release, and we're excited to have a conversation with him.
And remember, early voting starts, I believe it's the first Tuesday in April. Am I right on that?
You know more than I do. I'm focused on May 2nd, Election Day.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you.